Our growth strategy globally is very similar to in India, as we really work to transform the agency to become a stronger communications consultancy. And we're looking at expanding our business from core, what you often would call, media relations, to really diversify to make sure we're reaching customers and consumers through every communications channel available today. So I've had the pleasure in India this morning of spending time with our digital and social team, and I think that's a growth area for us all over the world, is continuing to become much stronger visual storytellers and also leverage all the channels, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere we are today. I asked the team this morning, how many times have you looked at your phone since breakfast? And no one could answer me because they couldn't count the number of times. So we want to make sure we're communicating and reaching you wherever you're interacting. Well, in India, we're looking to continue to diversify in industries. We're adding more companies beyond financial services and technology and health and other areas. We're also investing in more digital and social talent, and in influencer management and influencer engagement, which is also a growing area for us. Well, the way we look at communications is earned media is at the core of everything we do, but earned media today can be through influencers and bloggers, it can be through traditional media, and it can be direct to consumer or direct to customer through lots of our own channels. So truthfully, what we believe is that 360 communications is going to be critical. And often it even starts with the company's employees and making sure that you're communicating well to them and have them on board to be ambassadors for your brand today.
And how are you educating your brands as to what they should do?
Well, trust is critical, we think, and particularly now with the up-and-coming generation, They're looking more and more to align their own values with the company's values. So for us, what we are telling our clients to do is to make sure that you're authentic in your communication and honest, because that openness is critical today, both from the C-suite and the brands themselves. We also believe that for the long tail, we talk about a lot of companies, are looking month to month to make their numbers, but truthfully, brands are built over the long term. And so purpose today often means adding societal value and giving back for the long term, and creating that emotional connection with the consumer. And we know that companies that have a higher purpose and value have greater results over time because they have more brand loyalty. I think what we've been talking about, today is that we need to be relevant through all types of communication, And some of those are going to be, things that you get traditionally. Some of those are going to be things you get on your phone, some of those. But the truth is, because now we don't have to sit in every place. There was a time when the global agencies, we were trying to acquire dots on a map and make sure we were everywhere. Now what we want to make sure we can do is communicate to everyone through the channels that they're consuming. So we need to better understand our audience and market by market, and those outside the big cities, those inside the big cities, and communicate effectively to them based on how they're getting and consuming information today. One of the things we talked about is regional language is important, but we think one of the things that can transcend that is great visuals, Because it's so hard to convert everything, although we're seeing a lot more mass to personalization and actually technology that can help deliver language. But we are looking this morning at a lot of great videos, photography, graphic design, things that you can look at and can convey if it's not exactly in your language. Analytics is becoming a bigger part of our business everywhere in the world. And I say both at the front end of really identifying, the audience segmentation, the path to purchase, where people are engaging with products, to identifying the right insight. Then what we talk about creates evidence-based creative, right? So analytics that drives great creative, and then measuring it on the back end. And now we can even measure, what messages are working most effectively, which influencers are actually having the greatest relevance or impact. So we talk about the agency today as equal parts left brain and right brain, right? We need to work both parts of our brain to deliver the best results. I use that stat all the time, which scares me that it's like 7 seconds or less, right? But I think that's going to force communicators to communicate in sound bites, to really make sure that we're getting attention, whether that's with the right words or headlines that can be search engine optimized, whether that's looking at voice differently or looking at visuals that are going to grab your attention and bring you in. And what we're seeing too is sometimes long form content, if it's engaging enough, is working just as well as short form content. But we're seeing, the growth of TikTok and other things that are just really quick. So we have to be versatile in our communications and understand that what we're trying to communicate. So if I'm trying to communicate to you about your health, you might have a little more patience. I've got to bring you in, but you're going to engage more. If it's a fun new product that you can take or leave, if I don't get your attention right away, you're swiping left to right and on to the next. We're looking at voice activation right now because how you talk to Siri or Alexa and what you ask for, your words are different than what you type. So we're starting to see different optimization for words. Also how brands can impact coming up. So when you say, I need Alexa, I need new diapers or batteries or whatever you say, right? What's going to come up is going to be different. So algorithms and everything. So we're really, I would say voice is in its infancy right now of us trying to figure out how to optimize it for clients. So I think we're seeing two things happening. One is that there's more trust in brands for the first time than the media in a lot of parts of the world. So how brands are creating their own authentic voices is critical. How their C-suite executives are communicating directly and building followership and trust. Because when something happens to your brand or at your brand, companies have to be ready to respond quickly and put out their side of the story very fast. The other thing we're saying to clients is to build influencers and build longer term relationships with influencers and with people that are brand ambassadors for you. Because often when something happens, the best place to correct it is to have other third parties come in and help you, change the story and change the narrative. So what that means is you have to develop those relationships year round. It's not something when you're in a crisis you can say, come help me, right? You need to have those people on your side. And many times today we're seeing employees come and help correct as well because they're strong brand ambassadors. Well, I think one of the things we're seeing is the commitment to purpose. And when we say purpose, it's not just quick in and out CSR campaigns anymore, but it's real commitments to driving societal change. So I think brands that have a higher halo effect and build that emotional connection are going to be perceived better. But I also think when you're in a crisis, how quickly you put yourself out there and address it and have what I call oftentimes empathy, right? And apologies at times, because there are times when companies, that's new. Our clients would never, we're not going to apologize. Now, sometimes you need to. And so how you handle that crisis really in the short term and the tone and who you put out from your company can have a huge impact on how you can change perception and how you deal with things. So I did a kind of provocative presentation at Praxis for some, because I was really, I think, pushing PR industry here to get out of their comfort zone and to embrace, social and digital and influencer and analytics and business results in a different way. And I think there's a great opportunity for the discipline to continue to evolve here. and to be really perceived as more critical to business results. Well, I think India faces, right, the diversity of the makeup of its population, and we talked about that a little bit, and the different languages and things. So that is, certain markets, and particularly India and China, have much more of that to overcome. So I think that makes it harder to be consistent in the market. I also think, though, that you are growing in mobile faster than anyone, and so you also have an opportunity to leapfrog some markets and really, shift to social and digital and have a great impact on how you're delivering communications in this market. So I think there's threats and opportunities. I think what you're saying about, crisis and issues, that's happening everywhere, because the challenge is, you're sleeping and news is going out and you wake up in the morning and, oh my gosh, what happened overnight? So I think we're also having to monitor and do social listening in real time today and make sure that we're seeing the warning signs, because sometimes you can see themes start to bubble up. So kind of get you on yellow alert to prepare, and sometimes, things just happen overnight and you have to wake up and respond. That we're not seeing. I think what we're seeing actually is that our discipline is actually being more valued. And we've shifted our agency to really talk about being communications consultants, right? Because a consultant doesn't just take an order. A consultant really looks at the ecosystem and helps you figure out what types of communication, what channels you need, what types of content you need to make sure that you're impacting your sales and your reputation. So the key today, I think, again, is going back to leveraging analytics and that left brain, being extremely creative with the right brain to get that attention, and making sure that we're using every piece of the communication cycle on behalf of our clients. And it's much more complicated than it's ever been. So it's going to force us to understand our deep business and industry expertise of our clients and take all the communications expertise and weave those across. So we're doing a lot of reskilling and training. In fact, I was meeting with our digital and social team today, and half of them we're digital natives coming from other firms, and half of them coming from traditional PR being retrained. So I think that what we have to commit to is, and we are year-round now, doing training in influencer marketing and how to understand. We have a lot of technology now, even AI-enabled technology, to help you identify micro-influencers, and then you have to match them with the brand. So that's a new technique. Most of our people aren't used to that. We're training on analytics and databases to understand the audience segmentation better and the audience insights better. But we're also making sure that we continue to train on what the media relations, but how to make sure you're reaching, podcasts today versus bloggers versus newspapers versus media, right? Everything is different. And the other place I would say we're doing a lot of training is in visual storytelling, because so many of our people came into the business as really strong writers, and now we're adding a lot more visual storytellers. So I say to people, if you're not an avid learner, don't come into this business, because I think it's changing tremendously now, and it's going to continue to change. Yeah, I think in India, I would say embrace the change, become stronger visual storytellers, and make sure that you're committed to understanding the analytics and the business of our business and how communications can affect business outcomes, because that's how I think we're going to evolve the discipline to be even more relevant in this market. Well, I think what we're seeing is communications is actually becoming more well-known in the C-suite today, because I think the CCO can often be the conscience of a company, right? They're helping keep that company on track and helping promote the long-tail reputation of a company, as well as the short-tail day-to-day news of a company. And so what we're seeing is, I think that the C-suite realizes that we're an agile discipline that can move fast and help them on the good days and also on the tough days.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.